saving the day with KYC and AML. Users and investors protection in action.
I'm going to let you guys introduce yourself. You do it better than me. Xavier.
Sounds good. I'll kick it up. So I'm Xavier, covering part of Europe for Incode. Incode is today providing state-of-the-art identity verification technology. So answering 3 questions, right? Are you the person that you say you are? Is your document valid? And, are you just the right person?
Yeah, I've got a few questions for you on that later. Please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Owen. I work with 888 in William Hill as a deputy MLRO. Been there since the beginning of the year. But before that, I've been in several different roles when it comes to gaming compliance, also an auditor, consultant. So about 10 years combined experience in the gaming industry. And before that, in technology.
MLRO is a title that people hear. They don't really understand what it means, right? So in some banks, just to put some color, the chief MLRO is the guy that potentially could be legally liable if something doesn't happen properly. So I don't envy your job, man. That's a big job. Andrew, can you introduce yourself?
Oh, yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Andrew. I'm the technical pre-sale manager, but also an anti-fraud analyst, basically helping to identify good guys from the bad guys and helping you identify them as well. So,
excellent.
Thank you.
Right. Let's jump into a topic there. You talk about knowing who is feeling, like know your gamers or know your players, as I said. We had an event a couple of days ago, and I was showing the audience that you can actually buy a passport from any nationality you want for about $4. You can go online, you put the picture you want. I made a fake passport of Obama coming from Kenya because Trump wanted to see that. So, and it was just $4 to go online. So tell me, when these guys have these like their own fake KYC tools, how do you guys fight these, and how does it work from an operator point of view? How can we help Owen feeling secure that the people he's onboarding is not using some synthetic identity, fake identity? That would be a good point for us to start.
I mean, that's a great question, and there are so many layers to this, right? If you think of a human being, so if you were able to actually go into a casino and give your passport to an operator, like you as a human, right? Like anyone here, if I give you my passport, how do you know it's real? Like you'll do your best, but without having in-depth knowledge and being able to verify every little security feature, it's pretty difficult. So now imagine doing this remotely when you're trying to verify users, right, from far away. So yeah, there are ways to verify a document using machine learning technology, right? And this is visual. That's a certain layer. I think a more advanced layer is reading the chip, because when you buy a fake passport online, they do not have the technology to go in and encrypt the chip with the same certificates that have been issued by the government. And the third layer after that will be going into the government database to actually extract the biometrics, the name and other data from the government directly.
And so when we look at that, so Andrew on the other side is a tech guy. So Andrew maybe can talk a bit on how we can then, as a technology, work at what's the device. So you're looking at the identity. Does he have a chip? Did it use the same phone to check the chip on a passport? And Andrew, give us a bit of a rundown on how you can attach the digital identity of the users, like their phone, their device, their IP address, where they live, and so on. And then I think that's linking nicely to how then the operator can use that to get a feeling of confidence.
So what we see is that the regular KYC checks, they are efficient, obviously, and can be and are used by many of you as well as the main and important point of the checks for your customers to know them better. But what's also important is that, unfortunately, it might be overlooked. So through the use, when the fraudsters are using tools to get those passports, buy them on the dark web, basically apply them from the same devices to register multiple accounts, to abuse your loyalty programs, and so on. So except for the documents, you always need to look into the behavior from the user behavioral analysis perspective. So whether the same device appears to be basically providing you tens of basically different documents from the same device, you need to see whether he's using the same context, whether he's using the same device, whether he shows the same behavior as the fraudster that you know already.
It's
So that
funny,
will
right?
add up.
Because this is exactly what our real life is. We are trying to protect the business by doing the KYC, and then it's like the party at the front of the business is so loud that you can't, you have to speak over the loudness. So Owen, right, so you're used to that, right? To try to go on top of marketing and the sales guys doing a lot of noise. Tell us how this combined with your vision of trying to have this REST-based approach, right? Because there's some VIP customers when we want to reduce friction to get things going. What you just heard from Andrew and Xavier, is it something that you use in your day-to-day, trying to combine technology and regulation together and have your risk-based approach?
The banging of the drums is well timed to my intervention. So whatever solution you go for, because these guys, they want to sell, all right? And I get that. But whichever solution you go for, you have to keep in mind the requirements of that market. So the first point is understand your target market. There are markets, for example, Denmark, Sweden, where you need to verify your identity as a player with the operator at registration. In MGA, it is compulsory to do that at the 2K deposit threshold. So there is a difference there. And the second thing is where these markets like Sweden and Denmark use a method of verifying the player's ID, which is native local to their market. With MGA, it's a bit more challenging because you are getting players from different jurisdictions. Okay, so different jurisdictions have different norms when it comes to document authenticity and authenticating that individual. In Denmark, for example, we've seen a difference. They went from NemID to MitID in June this year. They made the complete switch. Before, it was just authentication with NemID. Now with MitID, it's complete verification of the individual. So that, you should keep that in mind, and how the technology being proposed by the vendor is going to help you be compliant with that aspect.
And this is when you need to adapt, right? It's not a vendor coming in and saying, this is how I need to work from today, right? I see sometimes some big banners when you see this company run this software, and I'm like, no, that software is not running that company. And in our industry, it's really important to make sure the risk model fit the business model.
Exactly. In fact, perhaps looking at it from a higher, a bird's eye view, so to speak, your ID verification is just one small piece of the puzzle that your MLRO has to piece together. He has to, of course, keep up to date with all of the regulatory requirements, the changes, the guidance that comes out, and at the same time, balancing the needs of the business into that equation.
Yes. So there's a good example here. So when we work with ID verification, what we tend to do, for example, is we try to identify the device first. And if we've seen the device on any other, whether it's financial sector, not just gambling, but e-commerce, financial sector, and we saw that that device was committing fraud, then we mark it as a block list so that the KYC doesn't get triggered for a device that has no chance to be accepted, because we know for sure that device is used for fraudster, or the geolocation is on a location where we've seen a lot of fraud committed against the industry. So it allows those guys to then perform better KYC, because even for KYC, you have different levels, right? If you already have that sensation to say, okay, all of my systems are working together to optimize my MLRO, it allows you to then set less procedure, but better procedure, because now I know I'm not doing a check on something that's very little chance to actually be a regular player.
Yes, so there is also that other argument where you have to balance the requirements of the jurisdiction to satisfy them, and at the same time also protect the business. When we talk about fraud, you could commit fraud, and that in the AML terms, that could be what is known as a predicate offense. That is an offense that is done before the actual money is laundered into a business. So there should be, yes, the MLRO communicating and talking much often to the fraud department, and balancing the fraud checks, because chargebacks are a cost to the business, which nobody wants really. It can also be a point where the regulator picks up on you, or even your payment service providers. You're having too many chargebacks. Are you controlling who's coming into your business or not? So it's not just ID, but yes, fraud, it needs to be kept in check as well. And hopefully with these vendors, they can offer a solution.
Yeah. I would love to jump on a couple of points you're making here, because you are talking about the regulator and the potential cost of fraud from getting fines, right? And for some companies, if you're fined...
But also to the business.
Exactly. So on one side, you've got multi-million-dollar fines, but I'd like to spin it and look at, can KYC and certain AML processes be a way to enhance the business? Can it be a way to differentiate the difference between, say, your platform and another platform?
Of course, there is a lot of value in having a strong AML compliance program, because all this supervision and enforcement with the regulated markets, if you get slapped with a fine, it gets plastered all over the internet. And that's going to affect your players, but more worryingly, the investors or potential investors to your business. So having a strong and effective AML program is the cornerstone in the value of your company, I would argue.
Definitely, right? Because I know you're going to jump on that, so let me introduce it. We have clients that, for example, when they have poker game online, right, collusion is a big issue. If you have a good KYC process, it's much harder to have a synthetic identity on it and then being able to then have players that are spoiling the fun for the others. So there is also, in terms of not just a compliance ticking the box, but to make sure that your platform is a platform where players can play with legitimate players and really enjoying their time. And in a sense, when we work with our provider, we're really trying to trigger that. And one of the things that we were discussing before coming to this panel is a question I often ask is like, what do you think the AI of a good fraud system or AML system is trying to do? A lot of people are telling me, it's to catch AI, it's to catch fraud. No, a good AI, the first thing it's trying to do is legitimize your user. Legitimize that this is a real player and have everything done passively at the back, so the user experience is at the top of the agenda, right? So Andrew, when you are setting up a system, that's your first goal, correct? Legitimize the user, is that true?
Yeah, of course. So basically what's important to understand is that we have basically some legislation requirements, let's say, that we need to do, right? But we also don't want to scare the customer away, right? So that's why we need to apply all those checks provided by the technology, the proper one, to actually know that, this device has no risk. I saw this customer before. I saw that he's doing pretty the same thing over and over again. So I can say that basically I'm trusting this customer and he's trusting my platform, because he also should have this feeling and insecurity of this platform, right? So that my money will not be stolen, they won't be accessed by the third parties or the fraudsters, for example. And this is also the important point, like to have this sweet spot in between of the legislation and regulations and also the technology and checks that we want to enforce the customers to go through. And so it's really, let's say, hard thing to do, but I believe that there are already best practices to do that.
Again, when I don't envy Owen's job, right? Having to sit in the middle and make the call.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so you're talking about the sweet spot, right, between security, between actually knowing your customer and the best user experience. And what I find interesting is historically, like let's go back, 10, 15 years, everything had to be manual, right? Databases for, politically exposed persons, sanctions, everything was updated manually. Probably the same for device hash, right? Device tags. But nowadays with machine learning, we're seeing incredibly faster times to verify devices, verify IP addresses, users, check databases. And you can always add more checks, right? I mean, let's be concrete. If you're going to add, device verification, geolocation, check 5 different databases, check the government database, you're collecting a lot of data, it's going to add time. And I wonder, what is the sweet spot?
Well, it's millisecond, right? In reality, Andrew.
Yeah, you can process a lot of documents in milliseconds with the help of the AI and stuff, right? But if this is the fraudster who is providing you the fake documents, you will process these documents telling, oh, okay, all good. It took me 1 second to do that check, right? But will it matter in the end when this account will be resold to the third party or used by actually politically exposed person, for example? While you already has this check in place, you also should do this like on continuous basis, right? So it's not enough only to do this like while doing the onboarding stage, like doing those KYC checks for your customers. But when you see that this device or the customer's behavior has some, let's say, risky cues or some indications of potential fraud, then you need to reinitiate this process, basically. And so, of course, it should be done automatically at first. And I believe that it would be like too much of a hassle to do this all manually. So,
I mean, just a small point on the AI. So we compared the situation 10 years ago and nowadays. With sanction screening, the situation is much different than 10 years ago. There are more individuals, more regimes, more countries sanctioned than 10 years ago. About AI, I don't think AI is the solution to everything. It can definitely accelerate the information gathering, which we do on a daily basis from an AML standpoint, and analyze the information. So speed is key to detect your threats, but also to optimize the player journey. I'm taking off my MLRO hat for a minute here, because one, the gaming market, online gaming market has flourished. There's more competition. So the talk nowadays is not about acquisition, but also retention. The player journey is key. This is what I wanted to mention here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the AI is always something when I see people going, oh, AI this, AI that, there's so many examples of when the AI is not ready. Like the way we see it, we have an AI, yes. First of all, do you understand how that AI works? Does your client, the MLRO team, understand how the AI works? So that the analysts that are working with the AI are able to see when it's going completely sideways and it needs to be readjusted. And my daughter, for example, she likes to write books, right? So when she writes a book, she's asked me to use this AI mid-journey to create a picture of what she wants. She described it to me. I enter it into the AI, and then I learned that I didn't speak the AI language. What came out of that thing is not at all what she wanted to see, right? So there is a thing with that, but we need to be careful. These buzzwords, they're great, they can optimize, but they're not a magic bullet that would solve everything. Logitech had implemented an AI for customer service. I went on it, said, hey, can you help me with my mouse? Can't help you with that. Mouse? Can't help you with that. Keyboard? Can't help you with that. Anything? Can't help you with that. Okay, not quite ready. I think we've got 2 minutes left, right? So I'm going to ask you each, if there is one thing you want the audience to walk out this session and bear in mind, like one sentence each, or what you want people to really learn from today, and if they leave the stage with that, you're happy. Xavier, tough one, huh?
That is a tough one. I would say that even though it is difficult, because there's so many providers out there in the market, right, claiming to do everything, right? I mean, the business proposition online, everyone says they do KYC, everyone says they do AML.
They all say AI.
They all say AI as well, right? And it's pretty tough. The truth is, you do have some companies that own the technology. So I would say one key thing, right, to help operators out there is try and find operators who own their technology, because I think that's a big differentiator versus repackaging and reselling.
I can go with that. Owen.
Well, I hoped to give more points, but if I had just to summarize it in one small sentence is know your jurisdictions, know the requirements. It's okay to ask for help if you don't know the answer to everything. So communication, collaboration with industry professionals, it's great that you're here and you can also connect with fellow professionals. And yes, always be on the lookout on the next big thing. Attending these events is important to learn what's new out there. And you can then discuss and ask and keep on asking until you get the answers. That is what we do at the end of the day in AML, right? If it's not clear, just dig deeper.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to cut you off because we have only 20 seconds.
Okay. One thing that I would like to get with you is apply best practices from other industries to yours. Don't rely only on sole things such as AI or compliance or checks on onboarding and so on. Use it wisely. So
Great.
thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Xavier, Owen are here, so ask them question if you want to grab them. But yeah, thank you. I really enjoyed that. Thank you, guys.